Good afternoon. My name is Joe Bandel, and I am the last Rosicrucian. Um, I was just outside. That's why my glasses are so dark. They will get lighter as we continue through this. I try to share something of value once a week. Um, and the topic, the title of this video is going to be Banish the Illusions. Because especially at this time of year, in this society, we don't know what to believe. We uh, we just simply don't know what to believe, and so we go ahead, and a lot of times we believe things that are pure fiction, or that are impossible, or that are just uh, BS. And what makes it hard is because as humans, we're genetically inclined to believe everything we're told. And we we fall for it. We fall for it. I know that in the process through my life, I've fallen for just about every sales pitch that uh, ever got involved with. I'm just an easy mark that way. But gradually, after you fall for something and fall for something and fall for something, you get kind of immune to the process. And that's the hard way of doing it, but it's regrettably, it's kind of like that's life. So even in videos like this, as I try to share something, I go up against all these gurus, these people that uh, they have courses of spirituality and courses of learning how to do this and do that, and they charge money. I recently I'd been following a newsletter that I from an astrologer, psychic person that I really admired. I'm not going to say any names, but you know, it kind of followed the progression. They put out a monthly report for several years and it was free. And then they started charging for it and it was only $10 or something like that. I was like, I value this enough to where I'm gonna, $10 a issue, basically $10 a month, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. And like everything else, even like going to the chiropractor or whatever, every year it seems like they're gonna raise the price. Um, that's kind of like my chiropractor. I go just once a month, and it's a kind of a what do you call it? Where you if uh, preventory to prevent. It's kind of like just where you get your back cracked just to kind of keep it, make sure everything's good and stuff like that. And it takes 5 minutes, pop, 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 and they're done, and that's $60. So I mean, yeah. But anyway, this lady with her report this year, starting the beginning of the year, $22, and I'm like, no, not going to do it. Not going to do it. And I mean, it doesn't matter how good it is because I have my own resources. I believe are really better than hers are. Uh, but a lot of times, you know, you kind of like I want a little like reinforcement or seeing if somebody else is kind of coming from the same end of things as I am. So it's kind of nice. And that's kind of what it was, really. It was just kind of like uh, a strengthening of my own position, but I don't need to pay that kind of money for it, which uh, brings up that basically what I have to share somehow I can't bring myself to charge for it. I've thought about charging for it or whatever, but I can't bring myself to charge for it. Uh, I do have a I do have a Patreon on page if people are interested in supporting the work that I do, but I'm not going to charge for it because something prevents me from doing that. I don't know if it's karma or who knows what it is. I'm doing okay the way it is. I don't have any complaints right now that I need to. I don't need. I don't need to get rich. I'm not rich, but I'm kind of like I'm not. Money has never really been a very high priority for me, and spirituality has been a priority. So the idea of banishing illusions. Why do I think that that's a interesting topic? Well, it's an interesting topic because of the recent election, where it doesn't matter what side you were on, you had expectations. Either had expectations of what was going to happen, or now and now expectations of what you think is going to happen, what you hope is going to happen, or even what you fear is going to happen. And what I've found in my life and in my experience, it's like almost 100%. Uh, I have the wrong expectation. My expectation is not representative of what it really is. In fact, as I have stumbled through my life, I would have experiences, and then in hindsight, I would go back and I would say, oh, thinking of that experience and thinking, that's what they were talking about. I didn't think it was going to be like that at all. So we seem prone to delusions. It's getting it wrong. And it amazes me um, whenever there's so many people I respect and I like, and I try to maybe get into a casual conversation with them, and they're coming from a totally different place than I am. It's like crazy. How can how can this so many people who uh, I like or have a nice impression of, how can they think the way they do? And they would in turn come around and think the same way for me. I'm sure of it. But what I'm getting at is that just seems to be the way that it works. If there is a way of getting something wrong, we're going to get it wrong. And only through personal experience will we get it right. That is the value of personal experience. And how do you get it? How do you have that? How do you get that experience? How do you get it right? You go for it. Whatever it is, whatever goal, whatever belief you have, whatever you believe to be true, go for it. Don't try to like make it an intellectual uh, belief. Test it, see what happens. Because delusions and illusions, they're going to come up. In fact, in metaphysics, there is something that's called um, resolving antinomies. It's an important thing because what happens is you take everything that you believe. This is like an exercise or a phase that you have to go through. And you take everything that you believe and expose it, expose yourself to the very opposite point of view, an honest point of view, and find, if you can, find the truth that's in that point of view, because only when the two cancel out each other are you free of the whole thing. You're free of the issue. You're above the issue and you're able to see it as it is. This is so important because we are so polarized. And the reality, the truth, as I understand it, as I believe it, is that the only way anything can physically manifest in our world is if it is perfectly balanced. If it's perfectly balanced, it will manifest. If it is not perfectly manifest, it will not manifest. Which means that literally every single thing that manifests out there has a good side to it and it has a bad side to it. And we either see the bad side and don't see the good side, or we see the good side and we can't believe that there's a bad side to it. I could give different examples, and people are going to, this would trigger people just bringing it up because they're not going to believe that ultimately whatever physically manifests is balanced. And one of the things that's balanced is the idea of life and death. Because we generally, collectively, everybody is saying, well, death's a bad thing. But literally, to be born into a physical body is to die at some point, some time. And how the manner of that death is a sacred thing in its own right. And it should, just as life is a sacred thing. I'm going to give, this is just an example, and I'm not even saying it's my example because I really kind of, I guess I kind of avoid this topic or whatever, but the Rosicrucians is an example. They believe that the soul enters the body with the first breath that it takes, where it is independent from the mother for the first time. And that the soul leaves the physical body with the last breath. Period. Dot. And you can take your morality or whatever you want. This is the way that they're going to say it. The soul enters the body with the first breath and it leaves with the last breath. Okay, that's not what a lot of other people think. You're going to have people over here and you're going to have people over there, and they're going to fight bitterly for their point of view. And that's kind of what we're talking about, is literally you can take anything and you can take a side. You can take this side, you can take that side. Because what we're talking about is the mental paradox. The people who have done debate can believe me, but a lot of other people who have not had exposure to debate, serious debate and philosophical discussions, you can literally prove through debate, you can literally prove that anything is the best thing that ever happened to you, and you can literally prove that it is the worst thing that happened to you. And back in, I think it's the 1400s, they were proud of their ability to do that. They were proud of the ability to logically prove the divinity of Jesus, or to prove that he had a common birth. They could literally prove it. And in today's world, it's the same way. You can literally prove whatever that you want. And if you can literally prove whatever you want, it makes the whole debate nonsense. And that's where we're stuck in society. It's in the mind. It's in the belief in logic and reason. Logic and reason is flawed. Logic and reason leads to pride, false pride. It leads to people who think they're smarter and better than everybody else. And there are two types of knowledge and understanding that are superior to logic and reason, which the believers in logic and reason obviously don't buy. One is the wisdom of the heart, where you have a heart, you have a human, you have goodwill toward other people, you have compassion, you have just an understanding, a human level understanding of what's going on. If a person has a heart and they have compassion, the horrors that were inflicted in like the witch burnings and things like that would have never happened, because all of that hatred, a lot of hatred comes from ideological or philosophical arguments or disagreements. In other words, when you're in your head, it's easier to kill somebody who doesn't believe the way that you do. But if you're in your heart, it's harder to kill somebody, because you have empathy with them. You actually can understand part of why they're fighting for what they believe in, just like you are fighting for what you believe in. And there's a bond that way. But the mind is what divorces from that bond. It breaks away from that bond. The other type of knowledge or wisdom that's superior, of course, is what I call self-evident truth, which is it is inspiration. It pops into your head fully formed. It's just it's a truth that pops in your head, fully formed. You don't think about it. There's no reasoning it out. It's just there. It's evident. And that's the mystical illumination. That's what's called illumination. And these illuminations are true. They are direct insights that come from that aha moment, that come from that light bulb moment. And neither one of those share that paradox that logic and reason have. When you look at the role of religion in the world, and you look at the role that logic and reason has in the world and holds in the world today, it's very frightening because the so-called pride of Lucifer was logic and reason. They're so smart, and they're so smart. They thought that, oh, I'm just as good as anyone else, as God or goddess or whatever you want to call it, and that all these other people are dumb as sheep, and they could be dumb as sheep, but they have a heart, and that heart steers them right. It's integrated. When humanity turned its back on the Creator, they turned their mind away from the Creator. That's and we think. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in a lot of ways, what's wrong with this world is people that live in their head, and they are not living in their heart. They're letting their head dominate everything else. And the way that they are led into believing what they believe in their head is through mass media. It's through narrative. It's through believing a story or believing a delusion, believing a lie. Because what's a lie? A lie is something that is not true. And there's a point, I know this had something to do with the first time I ran across it. It's a phrase, and the phrase is something like, well, it's Banish the Illusions. And it was in the OTO. But the idea is, and this is something that I believe anybody who is serious in their spirituality, they're serious in their path of soul development and soul growth, they have to banish the illusions and go after those illusions with a vengeance. Go after those false beliefs and pop them like balloons as savagely and fiercely as they can, because every delusion, every illusion, every mirage is a false step. It's a false start. And you you got to get rid of the cobwebs. You got to get rid of the things that are not, they have no substance. The only way that I know of that you can do that, well, two ways. Uh, the hard way is through personal experience, which we're collectively going to be getting quite a bit of. And the other way is through exposure to another way of thinking, another way of thought, and being open to it. Now, I was very fortunate because early in life I had a religious crisis in which I didn't know what to believe. I was so confused, and I just made the choice, and I said, you know what? I'm going to try to believe everything. But most importantly, I'm going to try to believe what's in my conscience, what's in my heart, and listen to that still small voice that speaks through my heart, that speaks to my conscience. And if I get it wrong, if I'm going down the wrong path, I am going to trust that I will be told, that I'll be warned in time so that I really don't make a mess of it. And that's what I did. Also, uh, as the influence of chaos theory and its concepts, all inputs are valid. Where I really said, I'm going to try to believe everything. All inputs are valid. I'm going to try to find a way to validate everything. And over the years, I found out there were things that were extremely difficult to validate uh, in certain ways or perspectives. And so gradually over time, my beliefs became more rigid, I suppose you'd say, but they're still open. I still try to be open. I'll give an example like heaven and hell. What's heaven and hell? And what I can tell you, what I really believe is that at least, and I won't go any farther because I don't know, but they are states of mind, which means you can be experiencing hell right now or you can be experiencing heaven right now because they're states of mind. They exist, but they exist as a state of mind. That's an example of what I believe that way. Um, and we have to, we've got to be so careful of try to put your foot, be in wear the other person's shoes, walk a mile in the other person's shoes. Just kind of be open to the other viewpoint. You'll find it in masonry, especially in the Scottish Rite Masonry at the higher degrees. They openly admit that they're both sides are valid. And one of the concepts is recognize that opposite viewpoints have their own validity and work one against the other. In other words, take advantage of that. So what they do is what's happening today. polarizing, uh, polarizing society against each other, and because they're coming from a position of where neither side is, where they don't take either side seriously, but they make sure that everybody else takes each side seriously. Uh, they take advantage of it. I can guarantee you that, for example, now that Trump is elected, and when he takes president, a lot of people who are fearful are going to confront the reality of him as a president, and they're gonna find out that he's really pretty much of a moderate, just like he was the first time in his term. I'm not trying to support him of that or not, because I can, but that's the thing that you're going to see, just like how we have seen a lot of lies. For example, just yesterday, I guess it is, President Biden pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, after many times saying he would never pardon him, he would let justice take its course. Again, just an example of the polarizing thing, and how there's a good side and a bad side to everything. I'm going to use one more example that's a kind of an extreme example also, because you're going to say, how could there be anything good come out of some atrocities? And one of the realities is that heart transplants, organ transplants, limb replacements, a lot of the advanced medical operations that we experience today, regrettably, came out of the horrendous treatment of the Jews by the Nazis during World War II. So I'm not defending it. That should have never happened. But what I am saying is that technology, a lot of came out of that. And it creeps me out just to say something like that. But uh, it's, or dropping the atomic bomb on Japan stopped the war and created a whole new phase. What I'm going to just with leave this video, stop this video, leave it with the thought that for something to physically manifest, it needs to be balanced. And because it is balanced, it's okay to leave it. Let it happen. Get rid of it. Don't be attached to it. Don't be attached to it because it's good. Don't be attached to it because it's bad. This is another secret of occultism. It is free yourself from expectations. Just allow things to unfold without the expectation. It's the expectations that get us in trouble. Anyway, that's just some thoughts. This didn't exactly come out the way that I envisioned it would. However, it's took its own course. Um, go ahead. I'll see you next week. Thank you for listening.